Before I tell you what happened out there, beyond the spiral arm, where the stars thin out like old men's hair, I need you to understand something. I'm not a hero. I never wanted to be one. Heroes die young, or worse, they live long enough to bury their friends. I've done both now, and the difference is ash in my mouth. You've heard the official report, probably. The one command released after we drifted back into comms range, half dead and raving. They called it an unsanctioned reconnaissance operation, resulting in extreme casualties, but successful intelligence retrieval. Clean words. Sterile words. They don't tell you about the screaming. They don't tell you about the moment I had to choose between saving my best friend and completing the mission that would keep Earth from falling. They don't tell you that I'm the one who made that choice. My name is Captain Elena Vasquez. This is the story of the Odysseus mission. I'm telling it now because the nightmares are finally starting to fade, and I need someone to know what really happened before I forget the sound of Private Kim's laugh or the way Sergeant Mackeo used a hum-off key when he was scared. Buckle up. It's a long way down. The countdown hit T-minus 10 seconds, and I realized I had forgotten to pee. It's stupid, right? You spend 18 months training for the farthest mission in human history, farther than anyone has ever gone, farther than any rescue could ever reach, and you forget basic bladder management. But that's the thing about fear. It doesn't care about your fancy qualifications or your psych evaluations. It just sits in your gut and waits for the worst possible moment to remind you that you're still a bag of meat and chemicals strapped to a controlled explosion. Vasquez to command, I said, keeping my voice steady. Requesting 2-minute hold. Biological. Silence. Then, Commander Webb's voice, dry as Martian dust. Captain, you have got to be kidding me. Wish I was, sir. A sigh. 2 minutes. Make it fast. And Vasquez. Sir, don't screw this up. I was already unbuckling. The Odysseus wasn't built for comfort. It was built for speed and stealth, a needle of carbon composite and dark matter injectors, barely big enough for 4 people and their regrets. Our cryopods took up most of the interior volume, which meant the head was a glorified funnel behind a curtain that didn't quite close. Private First Class Mira Kim was already in the pilot seat, running pre-flight checks. She didn't look up as I squeezed past her. Captain, the injector seals are reading 0.03% variance. Margin. Acceptable, but not ideal. Then, it's acceptable. I ducked behind the curtain. The funnel was cold against my thighs. I try not to think about the fact that in 6 hours, I'd be frozen solid, and anything I did now would be the last normal bodily function of my foreseeable future. When I came back out, Sergeant Daniel Mackeo was in the co-pilot's seat, his massive frame somehow folded into the harness like a bear trying to fit into a child's car seat. He was Nigerian by birth, Martian by citizenship, and the best damn engineer I'd ever served with. Also the ugliest, but we didn't tell him that. He had a face like a clenched fist, and hands that could rebuild a fusion coil blindfolded. Captain, he said, not looking at me, I've been thinking. Always dangerous. If the injector seals fail during the transition, they won't. But if they do, then we die, Sergeant. Quickly and quietly, and no one will ever know, because we're so far outside known space that even our atoms won't find their way home for 1,000,000 years. I strapped back into my seat. Anything else? He was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, I was going to say, if they fail, I've rigged a manual override. You'll have about 4 seconds to punch it before the hull breaches. I looked at him. He finally met my eyes. His were calm, the way old soldiers' eyes get when they've already made peace with everything they couldn't control. For seconds, I repeated. For seconds. Note it, Specialist Tessa Okonkwo was already in her cryopod, running a self-diagnostic on her neural interface. She was our medic and our xenobiologist, a combination that said everything you needed to know about how thin we were spread. 23 years old, fresh out of the academy, with a smile that could disarm a tribunal and a brain that could process spectroscopic data faster than most computers. She was also the only one of us who hadn't seen combat. Tessa, I said, you good? She opened her eyes. They were wide but not scared, curious. That was either the best possible sign or the most terrifying one. Captain, do you think we'll find anything out there? I think we'll find something, I said. I just hope it doesn't find us first. Commander Webb's voice crackled through the speakers. T-minus 90 seconds, Odysseus. Final systems check. Confirm readiness. I keyed the mic. Odysseus confirms. All systems go. Crew is ready. Liar, I thought. No one is ever ready for this. The mission, on paper, was simple. 3 months prior, a deep space listening array had picked up a signal from beyond the Perseus arm, a repeating pattern of gravitational waves that didn't match any known natural phenomenon. The official analysis said it was probably a neutron star with an unusual rotation profile. The unofficial analysis, the one that had landed on my desk in a sealed envelope marked eyes only, said something else entirely. It said the pattern was artificial, and it said the signal was getting stronger. Someone was out there, and either they were trying to talk to us or they were trying to find us. Command wanted to know which before it was too late. The catch? The signal originated from a region of space nearly 2,000 light-years beyond our farthest established outpost. No supply lines, no communication relay, no backup. If something went wrong, we wouldn't just be on our own. We'd be on our own in a way no human had ever been before. So how my crew? That's what you need to understand about us. We weren't heroes. We were just the kind of stupid that looks at an abyss and says someone should go check that out. T-minus 60 seconds. Makeo started humming. It was an old Nigerian lullaby, something his grandmother used to sing. He only hummed it when he was terrified. Sergeant, I said, you're making me nervous. I'm making me nervous, Captain. That's the problem. Kim didn't look away from her instruments. Injector seals holding at .02 variance. Drift is slowing. Told you, I said. You didn't tell me anything. You just hope. Same thing. T-minus 30 seconds. The Odysseus began to vibrate, a low thrum that I felt in my teeth. The dark matter injectors were spooling up, compressing the fabric of space-time in front of us while expanding it behind. The Alcubierre drive wasn't really faster than light. It just cheated, bending the universe until the distance between here and there was small enough to step across. We were about to take a very big step. T-minus 10 seconds. All hands, I said, initiate cryo sequence. See you on the other side. Tessa was the first to close her pod. She gave me a little wave, then her eyes fluttered shut as the sedatives kicked in. Makeo went next, his hum cut off mid-note. Kim hesitated just for a second and looked at me. Captain, she said, my mother doesn't know I'm on this mission. I blinked. What? I told her I was stationed at Ganymede. She thinks I'm doing logistics. Kim, why in the hell would you? Because she'd worry. And I didn't want her last memory of me to be fear. Kim's jaw tightened. If we don't make it back, someone needs to tell her the truth. Not the official version. The truth. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. I'll tell her myself. But we're making it back. She smiled. Small, fragile, real. Then she closed her pod. I was the last one awake. The countdown hit 0. The Odysseus screamed. And the universe folded around us like a piece of paper crumpling in a fist. The last thing I saw before the cryo drugs pulled me under was the starfield outside the viewport. Familiar constellations stretching, warping, and then gone, replaced by a darkness so complete it felt like falling into God's blind spot. Then nothing. I woke up to the smell of burnt insulation and Makeo's voice in my ear, saying words no commander ever wants to hear. Captain, we have a problem. The cryo-thaw was always brutal, but this was worse. My limbs felt like they'd been replaced with lead pipes, and my vision swam with afterimages. I tried to speak, but my throat was sandpaper. Status, I managed. We're here, Makeo said. Mostly. That got me moving. I forced my eyes open and took in the Odysseus. The cabin was intact, which was something, but smoke curled from a panel near the engineering station. Kim was already out of her pod, running diagnostics. Tessa was still in hers, but her eyes were open, good sign. Defined mostly, Sergeant. Makeo pointed to the navigation display. We arrived at the coordinates. But the signal source isn't where it was supposed to be. I swung my legs out of the pod. My bare feet touched the cold deck, and the shock helped clear my head. Where is it? That's the problem. He brought up a holographic projection, a map of the local stellar neighborhood, based on our long-range scans. The signal's source has moved. It's now approximately 400 million kilometers deeper into the system, near the fourth planet. A planet. Correction, what used to be a planet. Makeo zoomed in. The image that resolved made my stomach drop. It was a gas giant, or had been once. Now, It looked like someone had taken a melon baller to it. A huge chunk of the upper atmosphere was gone, peeled away in a spiral pattern that suggested some kind of massive extraction operation. Floating in the void where the planet's clouds used to be was a structure. Calling it a structure felt like calling the ocean wet. It was enormous, hundreds of kilometers across, a lattice of dark metal and pulsing light that seemed to breathe. Tendrils extended from it into the planet's remaining atmosphere, pumping something up from the depths below. "What am I looking at?" I whispered. Kim answered without turning around. "I've been running spectral analysis on the light emissions. Captain, whatever that thing is, it's not just mining the planet. It's processing it, converting matter into energy on a scale I've never seen." "Energy for what?" She finally turned. Her face was pale. "That's the part one can't figure out. The energy signatures don't match any known propulsion or power generation. It's like they're, I don't know, storing it. For something big. The signal. The one we come to investigate. It pulsed from the heart of the structure, stronger now, close enough to feel in my bones. They're building something," I said slowly, "or charging something. And we just woke up in its backyard." Makayo's lullaby hum started up again, barely audible. "Captain, I don't like this. We're blind. Our comms array is still recalibrating. We can't reach command for at least another 12 hours, and even then, the signal lag will be, I know what the lag will be." I stood up, ignoring the protest from my joints. 12 hours to send a message. 12 hours to get a reply. 24 hours minimum for any response. And that's if they drop everything and come running, which they won't because they can't. Silence. Tessa finally spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Captain, what are our orders?" That was the moment. The one they train you for in every leadership course, every simulation, every nightmare scenario. The moment when everyone looks at you, and you realize that there's no one above you to pass the buck to. No one behind you to catch you if you fall. Just 4 humans and a ship that was never meant for this. I looked at the structure on the display. I looked at my crew, scared, tired, but still here, still ready. "We do what we came here to do," I said. "We find out who sent that signal. And then we figure out how to get home." Kim raised an eyebrow. "And if they're not friendly?" I thought about the planet with its guts torn out, about the scale of the operation we were looking at, about the fact that whoever built that thing had technology we couldn't even classify. Then we don't give them a chance to find us first. The next 6 hours were a masterclass in controlled terror. We powered down everything non-essential, running on battery backups and hope. The Odysseus drifted through the system's outer debris field, using chunks of rock and ice for cover while we ran low-power scans of the structure. Kim handled navigation, threading us through the field with a precision that made me want to kiss her. Makayo babysat the drive, ready to punch us out of the system at the first sign of trouble. Tessa monitored the crew's biosigns and kept a log of every new discovery, her fingers flying across her tablet. "Captain," Tessa said, "I'm picking up life signs." I was at the observation port, watching the structure grow slowly in the distance. "How many?" "Thousands. Maybe more." Her voice was tight. "But they're not like us. Their biosignatures are, I don't know how to describe it, partial, like they're not fully biological. We're not fully anything. Cyborgs. Maybe. Or something else entirely." The energy signatures around each life sign suggest some kind of symbiotic relationship with the structure itself. They're not just living in it. They're part of it. I thought about that for a long moment. Hive mind. Unknown. But, Captain, if they're a hive mind, they'll know we're here already. The moment we enter the system, we would have registered as an anomaly. Then, why haven't they responded? No one had an answer. We pushed deeper. The debris field thinned out, and we had to rely on the Odysseus's stealth coating, a black market modification that absorbed most forms of active scanning. It wasn't military grade, but it was the best we could afford. Command didn't know we had it. There were a lot of things Command didn't know. "Captain," Kim said, "I'm getting a transmission." My heart stopped. "From the structure?" "No, from a signal source itself. It's repeating. And it's not just gravitational waves anymore. There's a data component. Can you decode it?" "I can try." She started working, her brow furrowed. Makayo leaned over her shoulder, watching. Tessa crept closer. The transmission was a single word, repeated in a pattern that reminded me of a heartbeat. Over and over the same sequence. Kim's face went pale. Captain, I think it's a language. Translate it. I can't. Not fully. But the pattern suggests a name. Or a designation. She looked up at me. It's calling itself. Or someone. The closest approximation I can make is the harvesters. The word hung in the air like a blade. Harvesters, I repeated. Of what? Kim pointed at the display. At the ruined planet, its atmosphere being stripped away in ribbons of fire and gas. Of everything. That's when the structure lit up. Not gradually. Not with warning. One moment it was dark, a silent lattice against the stars. The next, every surface blazed with light, a deep, pulsing red that matched the pattern of the transmission. The tendrils retracted from the planet, snapping back into the structure like whips. And the whole thing began to turn. Not spin. Turn. As if it had just noticed us. As if it had just woken up. Evasive maneuvers, I said. Already on it. Kim threw the Odysseus into a hard burn, kicking us out of our drift and toward the debris field. The structure's light intensified, and I felt a low vibration through the deck. Not from our engines, but from them. Some kind of long-range scan sweeping across the system. It passed over us. For one terrible second, I was certain we were dead. The stealth coding would fail. They would see us, and then they would come, and we would be 4 humans in a tin can against an enemy that ate planets for breakfast. The scan passed. We were still here. They didn't find us, Mikhail breathed. How did they not find us? They weren't looking, Tessa said quietly. Captain, that scan wasn't targeted. It was automatic, like breathing. They weren't searching for intruders because they've never had any. Until now, I said. I made a decision then. The kind of decision that haunts you. The kind that gets people killed. Kim, take us closer. She stared at me. Captain, that's suicide. No, suicide would be going home empty-handed. We came all this way to find out what's out here. We're not leaving until we know. Know what exactly? I pointed at the structure. Know how to kill it. The look on her face was the first time I'd ever seen fear in Mira Kim's eyes. Not caution, not concern. Real, honest-to-God fear. But she didn't argue. She just turned back to her controls and took us deeper into the lion's den. That's when everything went wrong. The closer we got, the more the structure resolved into something I couldn't unsee. From a distance, it had looked like a lattice, geometric, almost beautiful like a cathedral built by spiders. Up close, it was a charnel house. The tendrils we'd seen mining the planet weren't mechanical. They were organic. Miles-thick cables of what looked like muscle and nerve tissue wrapped around metal struts, pulsing with the slow rhythm of a sleeping giant. The light we'd seen wasn't artificial. It was bioluminescence, the kind that comes from deep-sea creatures and things that have never seen the sun. The harvesters weren't just living in the structure. They were the structure. Every beam, every surface, every glowing node was part of a single, massive organism. And we were flying straight into its belly. Captain, Tessa whispered, I'm picking up neural activity. Not localized, distributed. Like a brain that's been spread across hundreds of kilometers. Can it think? It is thinking constantly. The signal we detected, it's not a transmission. It's a thought, a recurring one, looping over and over. The harvesters, the harvesters, the harvesters. Obsessive, Mikhail muttered. Like a prayer, or a command. We found an opening, a gap between 2 of the organic cables, wide enough for the Odysseus to slip through. It wasn't an airlock or a docking bay. It was more like a wound. The edges of the cables were raw, weeping a fluid that glittered in our lights. Someone's been cutting into this thing, Kim said. Look at those edges. They're not natural. Nothing about this is natural, I replied. But if there's damage, that means someone else has been here. Someone who isn't them. Or someone who is them, Mikhail said darkly. Internal conflict. A civil war among the harvesters. We didn't have time to speculate. The opening led to a tunnel, if you could call it that spiraled inward deeper into the structure. The walls were alive, covered in what looked like a cross between coral and circuit boards. Every few meters, we passed clusters of the partial life signs Tessa had detected, creatures that were neither fully organic nor fully machine, frozen in place like statues. Their eyes, if you could call them eyes, followed us as we drifted past. They're aware, Tessa said, but they're not reacting. It's like they're in standby mode. Don't wake them up. We traveled in silence for 20 minutes, The only sounds the whisper of our thrusters and the distant hum of the structure itself. The tunnel opened into a chamber so vast that our lights couldn't reach the walls. In the center of the chamber, suspended in nothing, was a sphere. It was smaller than I expected, maybe 10 meters across. But it burned with the same red light as the structure's surface, and the pulsing was faster here. More urgent. The heartbeat of something alive and aware. That's the source, Kim said. The signal's coming from inside that sphere. Can you scan it? Already trying. The sphere is Captain. It's made of the same organic material as the rest of the structure, but the density is off the charts. It's like a compressed star of biological matter. And there's something inside. What kind of something? She was quiet for a long moment. A single life sign. But it's not partial like the others. It's complete. Fully biological. And it's awake. The sphere pulsed faster. And then it spoke. Not in words. Not in sound. The transmission slammed into my brain like a physical force. A flood of images, emotions, concepts that didn't translate cleanly into human thought. I saw planets being born and dying. I saw civilizations rising and falling in fast forward. I saw hunger. Not the hunger of a stomach, but the hunger of a cosmos that had run out of food and was starting to eat itself. And beneath all of it, a single repeating plea. Help us. I hit the deck hard, gasping. Around me, my crew was in similar states. Makeo, clutching his head, Kim curled in her seat, Tessa, crying silently. The transmission lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like lifetimes. When it stopped, the chamber was silent. Everyone okay? My voice was ragged. Makeo groaned. Define okay. Alive counts. Then, barely, Tessa wiped her eyes. Captain, that wasn't a threat. That was a cry for help. The harvesters, they're not attacking anyone. They're dying. Explain. She took a shaky breath. The signal, the repeating thought, it's not a war chant. It's a distress call. They're trapped in some kind of feedback loop, consuming their own energy reserves to survive. The planet outside? They weren't mining it for fuel. They were trying to feed it to something. To themselves. But it's not working. Whatever they're doing, it's killing them faster than it's saving them. Then, why are they here? Kim asked. If they're dying, why not leave? The sphere pulsed again, softer this time, almost gentle. Another flood of images, but slower, more deliberate. I saw a vast network. The harvesters spread across dozens of systems, connected by threads of light. I saw the threads snapping, one by one, as something dark spread through the network. A plague. A corruption. An enemy that didn't just kill, it assimilated. The harvesters weren't running from us. They were running from something else. Something that had already taken most of their kind. And now was coming this way. We need to leave, I said. Right now. Captain, Tessa started. No, I heard the message. They're scared, they're dying, and I'm sorry for them. But we are 4 humans in a ship that can't fight its way out of a parking ticket. Whatever is chasing them, we can't stop it. We can't even slow it down. Our job was to find the source of the signal, and we found it. Now we go home. Kim was already plotting a course. Makeo was running engine diagnostics. Tessa wasn't moving. Specialist. That's an order. She looked at me, and her eyes were different. Harder. Captain, if we leave now, we're condemning them to death. And we're condemning ourselves, because whatever is chasing them will find Earth eventually. It's already eating its way through the galaxy. How long before it reaches our doorstep? That's not our problem. It will be, eventually. And when it does, we'll have no intelligence, no warning, no idea what we're facing. But if we stay, if we talk to them, we might learn something. We might find a weakness. Or we might get assimilated like the rest of their species. Makeo spoke up, his voice quiet. Captain, she's right. I turned on him. Excuse me? I've been looking at the energy signatures. The corruption spreading through their network. It's not random. It's targeted. It's attacking their neural nodes one by one. And the pattern suggests a source. A central point of origin. Where? He pulled up a hologram. A map of the harvester network, reconstructed from the transmission data. The corruption spread outward from a single system, like ripples from a stone dropped in water. A system that was alarmingly close to human space. Tessa's right, Makeo said. We don't have years. We might not even have months. Whatever is doing this, it's accelerating. And if we don't understand it before it gets to us, we're dead. All of us. I looked at the sphere, at the dying intelligence inside it, begging for help from the first creatures it had encountered in centuries. I thought about Earth, about the people I'd left behind, my mother still waiting for me to call her back, about the soldiers under my command who trusted me to bring them home. And I thought about Private Kim's mother, who didn't even know her daughter was here. 2 hours, I said. We stay for 2 hours. We learn everything we can. Then we leave regardless. Tessa nodded. Kim set a timer. Mikhail started recording, and I opened a channel to the sphere. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Nations Space Command vessel Odysseus. We received your signal. We want to help, but we need you to talk to us. Slowly, in a way we can understand. The sphere pulsed. The transmission that followed was still overwhelming, but different, like someone learning to whisper after a lifetime of screaming. Images came in fragments. A species, the harvesters, born in the core of a dying star, nourished by radiation and gravity. They had spread across the galaxy for millions of years, consuming worlds not out of malice, but out of necessity. They were living engines, converting matter into the energy that sustained their vast, interconnected minds. But then something had found them, something that had been waiting in the darkness between galaxies, patient as a stone. It had no name, no form, no presence that could be detected by any scan. It simply infected, insinuating itself into the harvester's network, rewriting their thoughts, turning their own hunger against them. The infected harvesters had turned on their kin. The war had been going on for 10,000 years. The uninfected were losing. The sphere, the harvester we were talking to, was one of the last. It had fled to this system, hoping to hide until it could find a way to fight back. But the corruption was spreading faster than it could run. Its energy reserves were nearly depleted. In a matter of days, maybe hours, it would be consumed. And then the corruption would have a new vessel. A faster one that could carry it to human space. How do we stop it? I asked. The sphere's answer was a single image. A schematic. A weapon, if you could call it that the harvesters had been developing before the war began. A device that could sever the connection between an infected harvester and the network, isolating the corruption and burning it out. But the device required a power source the harvesters didn't have. Something small, something stable, something that could generate an enormous amount of energy in a very short time. Something like a dark matter reactor. Something like the one powering the Odysseus. No, I said. Absolutely not. The sphere pulsed again. Not with images, but with something that felt like desperation. Like fear. Like the last gasp of a drowning creature reaching for a hand. Captain, Mikhail said, if we gave him our reactor, we'd be stranded. No power, no drive, no life support. We'd die in hours. I know what it means, Sergeant. But if we don't, Kim started. I know. The silence was absolute. The sphere's pulsing slowed, as if it was waiting. As if it understood that it had just asked 4 humans to sacrifice themselves for a species they'd met 5 minutes ago. Tessa broke the silence. Captain, there might be another way. I looked at her. I'm listening. The device doesn't need the whole reactor. It needs a sustained burst of dark matter energy, a pulse, not a continuous flow. What if we rigged our reactor to dump its entire fuel load in a single discharge? We'd still lose the reactor, but the ship's backup batteries could keep life support running for, I don't know, maybe a week. Long enough for us to figure something out. Figure what out? We'd be dead in the water. No propulsion, no comms, no way to call for help. But we wouldn't be dead immediately. And in a week, the harvester could use the device to burn out the corruption. Then it could help us. It could give us power. Or it could send a signal to command. Or it could eat us as soon as it's done. Tessa met my eyes. It could. But, Captain, it didn't have to ask for our help. It could have just taken the ship. It's 100 kilometers wide. We're a speck. If it wanted us dead, we'd be dead. She was right. I hated that she was right. I looked at my crew. Kim, scared but steady. Mikhail, humming his grandmother's lullaby, ready to die for people he'd never met. Tessa, 23 years old, and already making the kind of call that would haunt her forever. And me, the captain, the one who had to say yes or no. Mikhail, I said, how long to rig the reactor for a single pulse? He didn't hesitate. 90 minutes if I start now. Then start now. He moved. Kim joined him, her hands already reaching for tools. Tessa stayed by the console, monitoring the sphere's transmissions, learning everything she could about the device and how to activate it. I stayed in my seat, watching the sphere pulse in the darkness. "Help us," it had said. "We're trying," I thought back. "God help us, we're trying." 90 minutes later, the reactor was ready. The device, a crystalline thing that the harvester extruded from its own flesh, was mounted to the Odysseus's hull, connected to our power systems by cables. Matteo had jury-rigged from spare parts and prayer. The plan was simple. We would activate the pulse, channel the energy into the device, and pray that the resulting shockwave didn't vaporize us along with the corruption. "Everyone in their suits," I ordered. "Full seals. If the hull breaches, I don't want anyone sucking vacuum." We suited up in silence. The suits were old, hand-me-downs from a Mars mission that had never happened, but they held pressure. I checked each seal myself, tugging on hoses, tightening clamps. "Why got to Kim?" She grabbed my wrist. "Captain," she said, "if this doesn't work, thank you. For bringing us here. For trusting us. Don't talk like that. Someone has to." I squeezed her hand through the suit glove. "We're going home, private. All of us. That's an order." She smiled. It was the bravest thing I'd ever seen. We took our positions. Matteo at engineering, ready to trigger the pulse. Kim at navigation, monitoring the ship's position relative to the sphere. Tessa at the science station, tracking the corruption spread through the harvester's network. And me at the command station, watching all. "On my mark," I said. 3, 2, 1, mark. Matteo hit the trigger. The reactor screamed, a sound I'd never heard before, like metal being torn apart by God. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency reds. The deck lurched beneath us, and through the viewport, I saw the device ignite. It was beautiful, a spear of white light, so bright it burned through my helmet's polarization, lancing from the Odysseus into the sphere. The sphere absorbed it, drank it, swelled with it. And then it sang, not sound, something deeper. The harvester's network lit up across the chamber, across the structure, across the system. Threads of light connecting every node, every life sign, every partial mind. The corruption, a black, oily thing that had been spreading through the network, screamed as the light hit it. It writhed, twisted, tried to retreat. But there was nowhere to go. The light chased it down every thread, burned it out of every node, purged it from the harvester's flesh like a surgeon cutting out a tumor. The chamber shook, the structure groaned, and somewhere deep in the fabric of the harvester's mind, something that had been dying for 10,000 years began to heal. Then the light faded. The reactor went dark, and the Odysseus fell silent. We were dead in the water. I checked my suit readouts. Life support, nominal. Battery reserves, 4 days, 6 hours. Gum, offline. Propulsin, offline. Everything else, offline. Status report, I said. The device worked, Tessa said. The corruption is gone. The harvester is, I think it's waking up. Really waking up for the first time in millennia. And us. Maccao's voice was grim. We're sitting ducks. No power, no maneuverability, no way to call for help. If the harvester decides to eat us now, we can't even run. The sphere pulsed. Slower now. Calmer. A heartbeat returning to rest. And then it spoke again. Not with images this time. With words. Halting, broken, translated through a mind that was still learning the shape of human language. "Thank you." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "You saved us." "You're welcome," I said. Now about that ride home. The harvester kept its word. It took 3 days for the device to fully stabilize, and another 2 for the structure's damaged systems to regenerate enough to help us. But on the 5th day, a tendril, not the hungry, mining kind, but something gentler, reached out from the sphere and touched the Odysseus. Power flowed into our batteries. Warmth returned to the cabin, and a course appeared on our navigation display. A gravitational corridor, bent and shaped by the harvester's will, that would carry us back to human space in weeks instead of years. "It's building us a highway," Kim said, wonder in her voice. "It's paying a debt," Matteo replied. "Smart species, these harvesters. They understand barter." We spent the travel time learning. Tessa compiled a database of everything the harvester could tell us about the corruption, where it came from, how it spread, how to recognize it. The answers were terrifying. The corruption wasn't a weapon. It was a predator, an intergalactic parasite that had been drifting through the void for billions of years, waiting for a sufficiently advanced network to infect. The harvesters had been its first meal. They wouldn't be its last, but they might be its last easy meal. Because now, thanks to us, the uninfected harvesters knew how to fight back. And they had something they hadn't had before. They had allies. Captain, Kim said one night, if you could call it night, in the endless dark of deep space. What happens when we get back? We file our report. We debrief. We try to forget the smell. No, I mean, what happens to us? To this crew? I thought about it. About the four of us, crammed into a tin can, flying further than any humans had ever flown. About the moments of terror and the moments of grace. About Mikao's humming and Tessa's questions and Kim's quiet courage. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe they'll give us medals. Maybe they'll lock us up for stealing a stealth coating. Maybe they'll pretend this never happened. And if they pretend, then we remember, we're the only ones who can. The gravitational corridor dropped us at the edge of the Sol system, exactly where the harvester had promised. Our comms array, repaired by Mikao using parts he'd scavenged from the reactor housing, crackled to life with a flood of messages. Most were automated, but one cut through the noise like a blade. Odysseus, this is command. We've been trying to reach you for 3 weeks. Do you copy? Over. I keyed the mic. Command, this is Odysseus. We copy. We're coming home. The voice on the other end, Commander Webb, sounding like he hadn't slept in days, went very quiet. Captain Vasquez, you're supposed to be dead. We got better, sir. Silence. Then, a sound I'd never heard from Webb before. Laughter. As we drifted toward Earth, I gathered my crew in the common area. A space so small that gathered meant standing in a circle with our elbows touching. Mikao was grinning, the first real smile I'd seen on his face since we left. Kim was crying, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. Tessa was holding a tablet with the harvester's data, hugging like a child with a stuffed animal. We did it, I said. We actually did it. Don't sound so surprised, Captain, Mikao said. I never doubted you for a second. You doubt everything for a second. Only the important things. Kim laughed, a wet, broken sound that turned into a sob. I'm sorry. I'm just my mom. I get to see my mom again. Yes, you do, I said. And you're going to tell her the truth. All of it. She nodded, wiping her eyes. All of it. Tessa looked up from her tablet. Captain, the harvester sent one final transmission before we left. I just finished decoding it. What does it say? She read aloud, her voice soft. To the small ones who came from the lonely star. You have given us back ourselves. We will not forget. When the corruption comes for your worlds, we will come for you. This is the pact between us. This is the debt we owe. Sleep well, small ones. You have earned it. No one spoke for a long time. Then, Mikao started humming his lullaby. And one by one we joined in, not the words because none of us knew them, but the melody. For humans in a broken ship, singing a song from an old woman on a distant planet, floating home through the dark. The debriefing was a nightmare. 3 weeks in a windowless room on Luna Base, answering the same questions 100 different ways. Military intelligence officers, civilian scientists, politicians who wanted to spin the mission for their own purposes. They picked apart every decision I made, every word I said, every moment of doubt I tried to hide. Captain Vasquez, why did you approach the structure without waiting for backup? There was no backup, sir. Why did you risk your crew's lives on a gamble with an unknown species? Because the alternative was letting them die and losing our only chance to understand the threat. And you believe this threat is real? I looked at the panel. 5 men and women in crisp uniforms, safe in their clean rooms, who had never heard a harvester scream. With all due respect, sirs, I said, you can believe whatever you want. I was there. I saw what's coming. And when it arrives, if it arrives, you're going to wish you'd listened. They didn't know what to do with me. In the end, they gave me a commendation and a medical discharge. Combat fatigue, they called it. A polite way of saying I'd seen too much. Kim stayed in. They promoted her to lieutenant and gave her a desk job on Ganymede, just like she told her mother. But she calls me sometimes late at night when the nightmares get bad. We don't talk about the mission. We don't have to. Mikao retired. Last I heard, he was back on Mars, running a repair shop and teaching his grandmother's lullaby to a new generation. He sends me recordings sometimes, his voice, rough but steady, singing in a language I still don't understand. I listen to them when I can't sleep. Tessa wrote a book, not a military report, a real book, the kind they sell in stores. It's about the harvesters, about the corruption, about the 4 humans who flew into the dark and found something they never expected. It's a bestseller. People call her a hero. She always corrects them. I was just following orders, she says. The real hero is Captain Vasquez. I hate that. I'm not a hero. I'm a soldier who got lucky and made choices that still keep me awake at night. Like the choice I haven't told anyone about. The Harvester's final transmission, the one Tessa read to us in the common area, wasn't the only message it sent. There was another, a private one, addressed to me alone. Captain, you have a gift. Most of your species does not. When the corruption comes, your gift will be essential. Do not waste it. I don't know what gift it was talking about. I've never been special. No psychic abilities, no superhuman strength, no brilliant insights. I'm just a woman who got lucky and made choices. But sometimes late at night when the dark presses against my window and the silence is too deep, I feel something. A whisper at the edge of my perception. A presence that wasn't there before. The Harvester said it would come when the corruption arrived. I think it's already here. Not the corruption. The Harvester. Watching. Waiting. Sleep well, small one. I try. I really do. But the dark is very wide, and we are very small, and somewhere out there beyond the spiral arm, something is waking up. Something hungry. Something that has been waiting for a very long time. And when it comes, not if, when, I'll be ready. Not because I'm a hero. Because I'm the only one who knows the truth. And sometimes that's enough.